when you're looking at the evolution of AI, it's moving so fast. It's a moving target, and no one can work on it alone or solve it alone. You need as many diverse people and profiles and groups at the table. Even the AI experts themselves would say AI is too important to leave to the experts. So at AI for Good, great efforts have been made to bring as many different people to the table.
Today, we're joined by Fred Werner, Chief of Strategic Engagement at the International Telecommunication Union, the United Nations Agency for Digital Technologies. He leads global strategies for the AI for Good platform, bringing together governments, innovators, and industry leaders to ensure AI is developed and deployed responsibly to advance the Sustainable Development Goals.
Welcome to the Regulating AI podcast. We had Fred Werner with us today from ITU. Fred, welcome to India and welcome to the AI Impact Summit.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me again.
Great, Fred. We've had you a few times with us, and it's been an amazing conversation. We have a global audience, but this is specific to this summit. Fred, what is your purpose of visiting this conference in this year?
Well, I think this conference is very much aligned with AI for Good, right? It's looking at how AI can be used in a beneficial way to serve humanity. It's also looking at how to build international collaboration. I think it does have a special focus on the global south. And all of these things are very much in the DNA of ITU and AI for Good, where we want to make great efforts to bring as many diverse people to the table to help chart a beneficial course for AI for humanity.
That's fantastic. And I have a few follow-on questions there, but let me ask you, you just came in late last night, so maybe it's not relevant. First impressions, Fred, because a lot of our viewers can't be here, so tell them what first impressions.
Yeah, I mean, first impression is all the energy. I think there's a lot of energy and momentum, but also it feels a little bit like home. So I don't know if you're aware, but 2 years ago, ITU had its WTSA here, our World Telecommunication Standardization Assembly, where we have the entire Bharat Mandapan for 2 weeks. And also in the expo, where we are here today, we have the very first AI for Good Impact India. So this was the first AI for Good Impact event that was outside of Geneva that really looked to build collaboration around local solutions on AI for local problems.
Fred, what is the significance of the last one was in Paris, before that was in Seoul and then in London, and this is here. From the global south, we always hear about the US, China, and the EU from a policy and other perspective. Do you think global south has an opportunity to chart its own journey in the world of AI?
Yeah, so we've basically been doing AI for Good since 2017, and that's an eternity in terms of AI years when you look at how fast AI has been evolving. And when we first created AI for Good, it was very much about traditional machine learning, using machine learning for predictions and recommendations. Then we saw the advent of generative AI in 2023. Last year, the theme of the summit was the rise of the AI agents. And alongside with that, we're seeing a lot of developments in robotics, brain-computer interface, embodied AI, and even space AI computing. And what's interesting with the impact summits, if you will, the one that happened in Bletchley, and then Korea, and then Paris, and then now India, is I think we've gone through a bit of a cycle where at first it was very much focused on safety. Then when we looked at Paris, it was more about investment and innovation. I think looking at the India version, it's impact. And AI for Good is all about impact as well. So I think sometimes the pendulum swings back and forth between optimism, pessimism, safety, innovation, back and forth. But AI for Good has been consistent this whole time, where the focus has always been on practical solutions to solve global challenges. And a big part of that equation is making sure that the global south is at the table when it comes to developing these solutions, building standards, and also looking at policy recommendations.
Fred, when you look at there are 15 country leaders here, AI is now a geopolitical issue, it's an economic issue, it's a cultural issue. What does it signify when there's so many national leaders paying attention? the leader of this country obviously has spoken here, and then you have, President of France and others. You've seen this for so long, the evolution. How serious is this for countries, especially in the global south?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at the evolution of AI, it's moving so fast. It's a moving target, and no one can work on it alone or solve it alone. You need as many diverse people and profiles and groups at the table. Even the AI experts themselves would say AI is too important to leave to the experts. So at AI for Good, great efforts have been made to bring as many different people to the table. Of course, we have our 50 plus UN sister agencies. So that's virtually the entire UN system who are partners of AI for Good. You have the ITU membership, and ITU is unique in that it's the only UN agency that has a public-private membership model. So, of course, we have our member states, 194 member states, but we have over 1,000 companies, private companies, tech companies, AI companies, telecom companies, equipment vendors, you name it, who are members of ITU and helping to drive our standards work. And we also, as part of that, have over 150 academic institutions being part of that. At the same time, when you look at the composition of AI for Good, now the summit has grown, to a huge size, 11,000 plus people. We had over 100 ministers last year, more than half from the global south. We had heads of states. We had many NGOs, many industry bodies. But like you said, we also brought young people to the table. So we have our Robotics for Good youth competition, where we're teaching kids from 18 to 10 years old on how to create robotics to solve global challenges like food security and disaster management. So that's one good way of teaching kids by doing, and also creating potentially the next generation of policymakers and standards makers, and then maybe the next CEO. Who knows? As part of that, we have what we call the AI Skills Coalition, which is basically a year old. We now have over 70 partners who have created almost 200 online learning courses in 13 languages. And last year, we did over 10 trainings around the world in New York, South Africa, Geneva, and different parts of the world. So this Skills Coalition aims to democratize access to AI skills globally, from grade school to grad school, to diplomats, to PhDs, and everything in between. Because if you look at all the people here gathered today, there may be differences of philosophy on how do you approach AI, how do you balance innovation with regulation and safety. These are ongoing discussions, and it's not one size fits all. But I think one thing everyone can agree on is the need to address the AI skills gap.
Absolutely. Uh, Fred, there's a lot of talk about sovereign AI. Every country that I talk to, they say we want sovereign. What is your view on sovereign?
Yeah, I think this is critical. And we actually discussed this at quite length when we were in South Africa at the end of the year, where we had AI for Good Impact Africa. So that was the second one after we did AI for Good Impact India right here in this hall. The topic of sovereign AI was top of mind. And I think what was interesting is if you're looking at the African continent, if you look at the mobile payment miracle that happened in East Africa, they effectively leapfrogged decades of legacy infrastructure and development, which would have cost hundreds of billions, if not trillions, to put in place if you would have done it the old way. But just by using local ingenuity, creativity, working with telecom operators, they were able to basically, get rid of the legacy infrastructure and the middleman and create mobile payments. And now they're the leaders in the world with M-Pesa and all types of solutions. So I'm quite optimistic that perhaps with AI, and by putting AI tools and devices and applications, making them accessible to people in Africa, the same AI miracle could happen that happened with mobile payments. But I don't think you can take it for granted that it would automatically go in the right direction. I was actually talking to a gentleman called Lucky from the townships in Johannesburg, and he's writing a book on AI in the townships. And we're actually discussing, we're like, look, how many people in the townships actually have a phone which has a 5G, probably has an LLM running on it? And he said, well, probably about 80%. And then we got to the discussion, well, what are they doing with it? Are they creating new businesses? Are they creating value? Are they creating more cohesion in the community? Are they solving local challenges with local knowledge, using local AI? And he said, well, no, not yet. But the hope is that we could get there. And in order to get there, you can't take it for granted that just if you put the tool and the application in someone's hands, they're going to know how to use it in a way that's safe, that's secure, that's responsible, that is inclusive, that's sustainable, that respects human rights. So these are not natural instincts, especially not for a novice using it, let alone startups and big tech companies who are rushing out these solutions in full speed. So I think the work we do on AI standards can help to make sure that all of those things are baked in when you actually create standards that would allow these solutions to be interoperable, work across borders, but across devices and ecosystems. Standards are very important. But also by addressing the AI skills gap, then you can make sure that AI skills education somehow becomes part of the curriculum when you're teaching people, whether they're young people or the elderly or everyone in between, so that they also have a good chance of using the device responsibly. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done if you don't want to leave it to chance. But I think with the right partners, with member states, with telecom operators, with AI companies, with universities, startups, all working together in this ecosystem, there's a good chance that you could use AI for good in the African continent.
No, absolutely. Fred, one of the things that we talk about at Tennis, especially in the western part of the world, I'm based in the US, we're in Europe, is the impact of jobs or AI, the impact of AI on jobs, etc. And you started to see some of that from that work. What is your viewpoint of this and how it impacts the global south crowd for?
Yeah, so I think starting with the opportunity side, when we had Will I Am, who always has some pretty innovative and provocative ideas at our panel in Davos a few weeks ago, he was basically challenging the audience and said, "Look, you all have AI in your pockets now." He said, "Don't use it to make 100 new pop songs in 10 seconds. That's easy. Anyone can do that. Use it to create something new that never existed before." And I think you can apply that philosophy to your work as well. Are you going to use the AI in your pocket as a crutch so you can do 1,000 emails, 200,000 emails, do more of what you're already doing? That's not very original. And also, that's kind of a dead end road. How much are you going to squeeze out of yourself doing the same thing over and over again? But how can you use that device and the AI to do more, and not more for the sake of more, but to create something brand new that doesn't exist and might create a new business, a new startup, a new economy? Who knows? So there, I think going back to that mobile miracle in West Africa, leveraging the technology and the ingenuity to solve a problem, that's definitely the opportunity side. At the same time, you're seeing already some pretty concerning numbers of new recruits, new graduates rather, who are not getting as many jobs as they used to, especially in the tech sector. I think the jury is still out on that. Some people are saying that maybe there was an over hiring coming out of the pandemic with digital transformation, a bit too much hiring, and that this is a correction. Some people are saying, no, this is AI. Maybe it's a bit of both. Not quite sure there. But I think that is concerning and something to keep an eye on, because whatever new markets might come, whether it be from AI or from robotics or from embodied AI, the transition is probably not going to be smooth. It will be bumpy and it will be disruptive with the opportunities and the threats that poses. At the same time, we've seen some pretty concerning information actually from our partner ILO, who's been tracking sort of labor statistics. And one report said that especially in developing countries, that women's jobs would be disproportionately affected by AI more than men's jobs. So I think that's something to keep an eye on.
Why is
because
that though, Fred? I don't get that.
I think because a lot of the types of work that they're involved with might be the most quickly replaced
Really?
compared to some of the work that men are working on. And I would encourage you to download and read that report. And that's something that we're going to be focusing on at AI for Good Summit. So we do have a partnership with ILO on AI and labor to really track this.
Yeah.
So I think, like I said, there's almost two brains that you need about this. One is the optimistic brain, being AI for good. I by default and slightly more optimistic, but also the more realistic brain that's always looking at the dual nature of AI and making sure we can do everything we can to mitigate those threats.
Fred, finally, we are sitting here in India, Global South, this big event. What is your view on open source, for especially when you look at the global south, the use of open source AI? Because cost is a consideration for a lot of this region. What do you think about open source?
Yeah, I think with open source, there's always that sweet spot between having as many eyes as possible on the code, which can accelerate development, but also democratize access to the solutions. It can increase security in certain cases, but then at the same time, because it's open, anyone can use and abuse it. And we've seen a lot of cases on that. So I think the ITU standards making process has always been very open and collaborative with the open source community as a way to accelerate and open the standardization making process. But of course, there's the security concerns, which are, and there's always that sort of tension and release between proprietary models and open source models. But I think if you really are going to democratize access to AI globally, you can't only rely on a handful of proprietary models, especially when nations are looking to have their own sovereign data, their own sovereign AI. So I think open source will always be part of a solution. But of course, the risks always has to be managed with the benefits.
Fantastic. Fred, we call this the Voices of Impact because it's the AI Impact Summit. There are 15 leaders of countries here. If you had an opportunity to tell them something about AI for the next 2 days, because this is going to be seen by a lot of them, tell them what would you want to tell them about AI? These 15 leaders, because some of them are going to get the copy of this.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I could draw upon what happened at our summit last year. So last year's summit, we had over 100 ministers from 100 countries,
Yes.
many from the global south. We had some heads of state as well. And when we were having discussions on AI governance, called the AI Governance Dialogue, of course, there's different philosophical approaches. If you're east or west, north, south, if you're more pro-innovation or more pro-risk management or pro-more safety. But despite those differences, there's a lot in common. And I think one thing that everyone could agree on, whether you're a developed country or developing country, is the need to address the AI skills gap. And back to the question about the future of work and jobs, I think that's also linked to what we're going to teach people in the future. So really having a rethink about if AI is going to have a large part in our lives in terms of coming up with new inventions, in terms of automation, in terms of, taking over many of the tasks we do, but also maybe opening up new areas of work and creating value elsewhere. I think what we teach and how we evaluate students, and when I say students, we can't limit that to, let's say kindergarten to high school and university. I think everyone is going to have to be a student of AI over time. Then addressing that AI skills issue is probably the most urgent thing for the global leaders to think about today.
As always,
Thank you.
Such a pleasure. Thanks so much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me again. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Regulating AI podcast with Sanjay Puri. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you thought. Share it with someone curious about the future of AI, and join us next time for more stories and insights from the leaders shaping what's ahead. Right here on the Regulating AI podcast.